The PlayStation Store is running its summer sale, and there are hundreds upon hundreds of deals. I'm going to be looking at the games under the price of $10, as a lot of you guys did want to see this. I've got 15 games picked out, so we're going to get through this pretty quickly with all of them, so let's get right into it. Kicking things off, we have Risk of Rain 2, which is 60% off for $9.99. If you guys didn't play Risk of Rain 1, that was a great game, but Risk of Rain 2 totally shakes things up with a different presentation style, but still having a lot of the same elements, a lot of replay value, but I would recommend that if you are picking this game up, the best way to play this game is through cooperative play, so if you can convince a friend or two to pick it up as well, that would be a good bet. Great art style in the game as well, and a good bit of content. Like, I have friends that have spent north of 100 hours in this game pretty easily, probably well over that on PC. So yeah, $9.99 for that is pretty solid. Next up, JRPG fans, I would recommend Star Ocean: The Last Hope 4K and Full HD Remaster. That is 60% off for $8.39. Star Ocean: The Last Hope is a game that I enjoyed. I love the battle system. The visuals still hold up relatively decent. The story overall is good. The only real drawback to this game is the atrocious English voice acting. Like, it is legitimately some of the worst voice acting that I've ever heard in a JRPG, and while at times that it's so bad it gets comical, at the point of when you have 30 to 40 minute cutscenes, that does get a little bit annoying. So just keep that in mind. Still, overall, the positives definitely outweigh the negatives here. $8.39 is a good pickup here. Next up, Dragon Ball FIGHTERZ is 85% off for $8.99. Another good pickup. Now, unfortunately, the case with fighting games these days is that there's so much DLC content that ultimately, if you want all of the content, you do have to spend a pretty penny. They do have the Ultimate Edition on sale for $16.49. The base game is still decent, and I really enjoyed it, and mechanically, it's a very technical fighter. It's not your typical Dragon Ball game, of course, where it's more of an arcade fighter. This one is super technical and nuanced, and, you know, there's people that are super good at the game, but still, visually, it looks great, and a lot of fan service here as well. For $9, another good buy. Next up, we have Bloodborne, which is 50% off for $9.99. A good buy. I usually like to recommend Bloodborne Complete Edition Bundle, which includes the Old Hunters DLC. The base game is still good for $9.99. Hopefully this gets an upgrade sooner rather than later on PlayStation 5. It should be noted it is included with PlayStation Now, so that's an option as well. But a very good Souls-like game, and I loved the setting. This is by far my favorite game that From Software has put out, and that's saying quite a bit, but $9.99 for Bloodborne, obviously a great buy. Far Cry 4, 67% off for $6.59. For a lot of people, you just can't go wrong with Far Cry. It doesn't reinvent the wheel with a lot of the titles, but open-world, action-oriented mayhem, it's usually a pretty good time. Even if it's a lot of the same with all the games, Far Cry 4 still gives you a pretty good time with a lot of content, and for $6.59, I think that's a pretty good price for the game. Bear in mind, it is an older title. I believe it came out back in 2014. Another Ubisoft game, we have Watch Dogs 2, $9.99 for this. I know Watch Dogs these days is getting memed on with, like, Watch Dogs Legion, and I mean, some of the stuff they're trying with that game to, you know, reignite the player base is kind of goofy, but Watch Dogs 2 I still thought was a pretty good game. I will note that there is a demo for this game, which is like 2 to 3 hours long. It's actually a pretty lengthy demo, so try that if you're not completely sold on it, but I thought Watch Dogs 2 improved upon the first game quite a bit. A little bit more on the comedic side, but I thought overall Watch Dogs 2 was a pretty good game. I mean, if you're a fan of open world titles, you're probably going to have some fun with it. Next up, Kingdom Come Deliverance Royal Edition is 75% off for $9.99, one of the more underrated RPGs in recent memory, in my opinion. If you like historical RPGs, you're going to really like it, and you're going to get a kick out of it. The Royal Edition includes some additional DLC. Story is quite good, and while it does have an emphasis on realistic content, which might be a little bit of a turnoff, a little bit more of a challenging game, but overall, if you want a throwback of an RPG in terms of the time period, I think you're really going to enjoy KCD. Again, $9.99 for the Royal Edition is a no-brainer. Also, $9.99, BioShock The Collection is 80% off. BioShock 1, 2, Infinite, 3 great games. BioShock 1 and Infinite are elite tier first-person shooters. BioShock Infinite, especially to me, I love the setting, I love the story of that game. BioShock 1 is very good. BioShock 2, not as good as the other two titles, but still very good in its own right. There's a reason why people have such fond memories with BioShock, and this is another franchise that if you're a younger person, maybe BioShock just pass you by, man, because BioShock Infinite at this point, which was the most recent release, that's 2013. You're talking 8 plus years ago, and then BioShock 1, I think, was 2007, so you're talking 14 years ago for that, and some of you guys probably are now adults, whereas you would have been a kid when BioShock 1 came out, but $9.99 for the collection is quite good. If you're a fan of first-person shooters, single-player first-person shooters, you'll enjoy it quite a bit. Next up, we have Hitman HD Enhanced Collection, 85% off for $8.99. The real issue with this game was the price at launch, like $60 for this was absurd, absolutely absurd. But you get Hitman Blood Money and Hitman Absolution. Blood Money, to a lot of people, is considered as the best game in the franchise. I really enjoyed Absolution. Absolution gets a lot of flack, but for me, Absolution was one of the first Hitman games that I ever played, and I had a really enjoyable time with it. If you're a fan of stealth action games, I do think you're gonna enjoy Absolution as well. And both games for $9, I mean, that's the perfect price to pick it up for. That initial $60, I mean, I'm pretty sure I made quite a few videos being like, what the hell are we doing here with this price point? But at $9, again, a much more palatable price. Next up, South Park The Stick of Truth at $9.89, 67% off. I am not a big South Park fan. I maybe watched like 2 episodes when I was absolutely hammered one time, but I absolutely love South Park The Stick of Truth. And circling back to 2013, when this game was originally announced, I was like, bruh, they're literally trying to make a South Park RPG. This is going to be the most gimmicked pile of trash ever. And at that point, I wasn't too familiar with various developers and things like that, but this game is done by Obsidian, so really going into it, you should have known that the game was going to be quite good, and man, oh man, did it deliver. And again, you're talking to somebody that was not a big South Park fan, or, you know, not because I didn't watch it, it's just because I didn't watch it, but the humor is absolutely there. I thought it was absolutely hilarious, and mechanically, it's just a really good RPG, like, you can't go wrong with it. Obviously, don't take it too seriously, it's a little bit more on the humorous side, of course, that's kind of the deal with South Park, but if you're a fan of the show, you know, everybody that I've talked to that's played this game and is a fan of the show, they say it's a love letter to people that like South Park. So from that standpoint, $9.89 for this is a great buy. Go check that out. Frostpunk Console Edition is down to $8.99. I played a lot of this on PC. And this is done by 11-Bit Studios, the same guys that did This War of Mine, and this is a very, very dark and grim survival management game. Got to make a lot of hard decisions, and yes, while a game like this is probably more akin to a PC rather than a console, it works decent on the PlayStation 4. Ideally, you would want to play it on PC, but if PlayStation 4 is the only option, it's still pretty darn good, and another game that you can sink a lot of hours into. And 11-Bit Studios, man, they do a good job in making games that really make you feel emotional distress. But hey, I guess that's a bit of a strong suit from them, because I was super invested into this game for a while. Again, $9, and that is if you are a Plus subscriber. Go pick that up. Another JRPG, Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom, 85% off for $9. A beautiful, beautiful JRPG, and Ni no Kuni in general, I recommend to a lot of people that aren't big fans of the genre as a gateway JRPG to get into it, just because I feel like the story is really good and it doesn't lean on a lot of typical JRPG tropes, even though like a lot of those tropes aren't bad. I just think they are off-putting to some people that play Western RPGs exclusively. I think Ni no Kuni is endearing in a lot of ways from that standpoint, and $9 for it is really good. For whatever reason, the MSRP is still $59.99, but it's seeing an 85% off discount, so go pick it up for $9. Next up, Zone of the Enders, the second runner, MYRS, is 75% off for $7.49. Great mech action title. I really wish they would do another Zone of the Enders title, because this is one of the mecha games that has really resonated with a lot of people, and I think there's a lot of potential. Zone of the Enders, the second runner, this is a full-on remake. A little bit of an unfortunate scenario where they didn't remake Zone of the Enders 1 as well. It would have been nice if we could have got both those games on PlayStation 4. There is like a Zone of the Enders collection on PS3, but yeah, that's a little bit of a bummer. But for $7.49, if you're like me and you love mechs and that genre, go ahead and check out Zone of the Enders, the second runner. Next up, The Last Remnant Remastered is 55% off for $8.99. I remember playing this game back on the 360 way back in the day, and while I appreciated the combat mechanics, the real issue with this game back in the day was from a technical standpoint. Obviously, that is remedied quite a bit with this remastered version, and while I wouldn't say The Last Remnant is a perfect game, it does have a very, very cool battle style, and I think that's one of the main reasons to check the game out. It's a lot different than your typical JRPG, and the story is pretty decent, and again, this PS4 version does the game a lot more justice than that initial 360 version did. Definitely not worth like a full $30, $40, $50 of the price that it came out at. It came out at $60, but at $9, definitely if you're a JRPG fan and you want a game with a little bit more depth to it, check out Last Remnant. And lastly, we have Metro Exodus, which is $9.99 for those of you that are Plus subscribers. Metro in general is one of my favorite franchises. I love the Metro games, and while I didn't think Metro Exodus was the best of the 3 games, it's still a very, very good and dark first-person shooter. If you want a third-person shooter that has more emphasis on its atmosphere, engrossing you into the world via its presentation, soundtrack, and story. Metro does a really good job from that element. Not to say that the gameplay is bad, the gameplay is good, but it does a really good job absorbing you into the world, and from that standpoint, it's one of the best games in that area. I would put this up there with a game like A Plague Tale Innocence in that regard. If you haven't checked out Metro Redux, definitely go check those games out, and after that, go pick up Metro Exodus, because $9.99 for that is excellent. And that's gonna wrap up this one. Again, a ton of great deals available on the PlayStation Store right now. I saw a lot of you guys did want me to do the video taking a look at random games that are super cheap, and I'm gonna do that. Somebody recommended to me Nexomon, and I wanted to actually do that, but that game's actually not on sale, so maybe if it's cycled in, we'll do that, but I'll figure out something to do in the meantime. That's gonna wrap up this one. Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. Had to get through this quick since we have so many games, but that's gonna be it from me. I am out. Peace.